Are you thinking about buying or selling a home or are a real estate professional and want to keep up with the latest Twin Cities news, stats, and trends? Well, then come hang out with us for a little while. Hi, I'm Kirk Duckwall, and welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Today I have Tim Ulvin, BRIX Real Estate, joining me, but it's more of your past that we're going to talk about today and dive into, which I'm really excited about. Actually, it's a show I've been looking forward to for a while. And Chad Priebe, thank you, as always, for coming in.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
So, yeah, today we're going to be talking about tax value versus market value, right? Because this is something, I get these questions all the time.
It's a big one.
You know, well, they say,
right.
They say my home is worth whatever, right? And that can be a good or bad thing when it's time to pay the tax bill.
Right.
Not so much when it's time to sell. Oh, well, it's way higher than what the market is, right? Whatever. But I want to really dive into the nitty gritty of that in our second segment today. As always, if you have any questions for us, you can go to TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com, or if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, type into the comments section and we'll get back to you on that. But we also, on those sites, have all of our free publications, our upcoming classes, and so forth. Yeah, the Smart Home Buyer Guide, the Smart Seller Guide, where we actually dive in a bit, like especially with the Smart Seller Guide of how to evaluate the value of a home as for market value. But before we deep dive into that, I want to go over a little bit of what we're seeing in our market today. So right out of the gates, more good movement in the mortgage market, right?
Yeah, and ultimately, and I've said this before, you guys, because none of us have the crystal ball, but I feel like we're turning the corner. We are seeing signs with inflation slowing. The biggest thing here is we're fighting the debt ceiling, right? But good news is mortgage bonds, the bond market is performing pretty well. You know, we've seen a pretty substantial decrease in rates over the last week or so.
Yeah. I mean, we were nationally seeing stuff over 8.
Yeah.
Locally, even, I don't know. Did it get as high as the mid-8s?
I saw some lenders were posting 8.5.
8.5.
Yeah, on a 30 with no points.
Yeah.
So, today
now we're down at
7.49 with no points or so, depending on credit and property type and stuff like that. But the point that you're making is it's changing. Seasonality, we have opportunity. I know you'll go into that. But I like what we have ahead.
I know one of the big things that I've been tracking is the application rates, right? So as we've watched interest rates coming down, we've seen the application rates 3 weeks in a row up. Yeah. And it's a good and bad thing, right? It's depending on which side of the transaction you're on.
Right.
For buyers, it is making things more competitive out there. I'm seeing more multiple offer situations.
Yep.
And it sounds like your team has been kind of busy the last couple weeks.
We have been busy, and I've definitely had an uptick in showings, and then just trying to get more information out of it too. So I think people are really gearing up for next year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think the next few weeks are really gonna kind of show where our spring market ultimately, and by spring market, I mean January, February, March. Right. Not like a lot of sellers think April, May, June. No, the fastest moving market is that early season. And I think, if we see the rates continue on the trends they are, and the application rates and the showing rates and all of these things lining up, that, I think we could see a more aggressive spring market than we saw this last year.
Right. And just kind of a side note, I still hear people saying they're waiting for the bubble, right? And that is, I mean, as a consumer, if you're not in the industry like we are, you got to wonder, when's it going to break, right? These stats that Kirk talks about and what's happening in the market, there's no bubble that's going to burst. As far as
it would take inventory, and that's something we don't have.
Right. Yep. Right. We just don't have the inventory. A lot of people, I think they said 40% of people across the country that own houses are equity rich. Delinquencies are down on mortgage payments. So if you're one of those folks that are waiting for rates to come down and the market to burst, you're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen it with people who have attended our classes 4 or 5 years ago. They wait the 3 or 4 years, you go over the numbers and where things are, and they just go, I should have bought back then. You know,
Absolutely.
and they're just like, I should have engaged in the market, you know.
Yep.
And I mean, when inventory is, you know, doing this, that there's not going to be any sort of bubble. I know
Right.
one of the things that I got in conversation with about a week ago with somebody was looking at cancellation rates across the country, because in October, highest cancellations, I think national average was 17%.
Okay.
Well, you got to look at what's happening here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? What is happening locally,
Yep.
right? And our inventory had the lowest high inventory we've ever had. Right. So, and now we're on the way down. And if we drop as many listings as we did last year, which is expected, especially with rates moving down, we are going to have the lowest low, even lower than 2021. That should set us up for a very, very strong market. So
Right.
talking about some of these numbers, okay, we have new listings going down week over week. Not a surprise this time of year.
Right.
983 down to 934. Pending sales ticked up a little bit. Surprise, surprise, right? Interest rates go
Yeah.
down, pending
Yeah.
sales go up. So this is going to pull that inventory down. But 622 up to 711. 711 there. And then the inventory of homes, pretty decent drop, almost 200 listings out of the market in 1 week, right?
Okay.
That's starting to pick that movement. So 8,744 down to 8,543. We already talked about the pending sales. Yeah, so, you know, looking at some of the other data points out there is the showings per listing. Now, we're recording this here a few days or after the Thanksgiving weekend, so we did see the showings per listing drop during that week. Big surprise, right?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving holiday. And so the key is what happens over the next couple weeks, like I mentioned, because the previous week we actually saw an uptick in the showings per listing. We saw the market meter not moving down. Now, we did see a small downward trend on that market meter, putting it at a 3.06. So still in that buyer's market range, kind of I would say a mid buyer's market. So a lot of the homes still have some possibility for negotiation, not in that extreme range yet. But I think we're getting close to finding the bottom there with that.
I do too.
So, you know, I think, like, if we look at that cancellation rate here, we're right on par with, and it basically means out of the number of homes that go under contract, what percentage of those cancel, right? Yep. And I think in October, the reason we saw that jump up, and it did jump up here a little bit, we went from 10%, which is kind of normal, up to 11%.
Right.
But that was also the timeline that we saw interest rates getting up into those 8s. So, you know, now that we're seeing it back down and we're seeing those applications up, I think we'll see a reversal of that trend, as we usually do as things become more competitive out there.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to deep dive into that tax value versus market value, get your thoughts now that you're out there as a real estate agent, what you think the differences are. As always, any questions, check us out, TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. Again, TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. There you can download the free publications, and as mentioned, check out all of our free classes. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Kirk Duckwall here again with the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Our local sponsors are BRIX Real Estate, Network Title, Eric Bloomstrand and Chad Priebe with Bell Bank Mortgage, and James Tufson with the Preserve Group.
When shopping for a mortgage, there is a formula to get the best rate. With the market today, knowing this formula is more important than ever. My name is Chad Priebe with Bell Bank Mortgage. I have over 20 years experience in the mortgage industry and in home buying education. I'd like to share this useful tool with you to help you shop for your mortgage. You can find me at chadpriebe.com or call me at 651-207-9274.
Hello, my name is James Topson with the Preserve Group. Anyone can sell you insurance. However, is it going to be the insurance you need? When life surprises pop up, you want the right coverage. When it comes time to find or renew your policy, give me a call. I would love to review your existing policy and show you what I can do for you. You can email me at james@mypreservegroup.com or give me a call at 651-728-4334.
Not every title company is the same. There are many people involved with each real estate transaction, and all of them need to be in the loop or a closing may get delayed. This is why the people at Network Title strive to provide swift scheduling and communication between the buyers, sellers, agents, and lenders. We know moving can be stressful, however, your closing does not need to be. Check us out online at network-title.com.
People always ask realtors, what is your commission? But what they should be asking is, what is your rate of return? Commissions only vary by a couple of percent from agent to agent. However, the price per square foot you get just based on their experience and the quality of marketing they use can vary by 10% or more. At BRIX Real Estate, our agents use the right marketing and have the experience to get you top dollar for your house. See what we can do for you at BRIXTwinCities.com. Welcome back to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Yeah, today we're going to deep dive into a topic. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about talking about this piece and was excited to have the opportunity to have Tim come in here, Tim Ulvin, who is now a BRIX real estate realtor. And yeah, but you had a past career as a Minneapolis tax assessor for home values, correct?
That is correct. So I was with the city of Minneapolis for about 15 years. And
Okay.
so we saw, we were talking about the bubble earlier. So, got in and it was about 2005. Saw the prices of homes and then saw that crash and then saw it build back up from there.
Okay.
Pretty much did everything there from management to single family houses to commercial buildings and apartment buildings and valuations all throughout there and dealing with the appeal process as well too. And obviously I get some very kind words said to me throughout that.
I'm sure.
So
You're kinda
I
like
can
a
take a
bull-
lot.
Yeah,
So,
kind of like a dartboard, right?
yeah,
Well, you're
pretty much,
primed for a career in real estate.
Oh yeah, just keep it coming.
So I know, like I'm as sure as you have heard, there's a lot of misnomers about how value is come up with, and I know we were just talking about this out in the conference room. Was that not everybody does it the same across Minnesota? There's different processes that people utilize, but I guess like pre-bubble burst in 2008, I would hear things like tax assessed value is only 80% of where the real market value should be. Have you ever heard that one?
Oh yeah, and so it has changed so much. And actually, so right now, market value versus tax value, state statute says that your tax value should be 100% of market value.
Okay.
Now, back when Jesse Ventura was governor, there was a system called limited market value. So your value of property could have been at like $200,000, but you're really only paying taxes on $100,000.
Okay.
He did not, that was one of his campaign promises to, do away with limited market value. So that was slowly phased out. So that's where I think a lot of people who have owned properties back in, late 90s and early 2000s, they had a value and then they had their tax value. Now that was phased out, I think, in 2008 or 2005, 6, 7, or 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then now it's, so now state statute is 100% of market value.
Well, and I know, like, after the crash, then it was seemed like a chasing game, chasing where that market value was, because you'd see these properties, its tax value was $100K higher
Right.
than the market value. And then that's when I would get the questions as a real estate agent. Well, so you're telling me my home's only worth $225,000 and my tax value is $350,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and how it goes too is it's the value of each property gets valued on January 2nd of each year. and then that is based off of the prior year's values and sales.
Okay.
And then there is a sales study, so valid sales or basically arm's length transactions. They will go into that study, and then that helps value the properties.
Okay.
Now, there's also like your estate sales; those get thrown out. Foreclosures get thrown out, and there's other. I could go down the list.
Right.
And then you pay taxes on that the following year. So it's kind of, you have a value. So this 2023 value is based on 2022 sales, and then you pay taxes on that in 2024. So by the time you're paying taxes on it, you're looking at kind of 2-year-old data. And kind of back to that fact of, when that market crashed. So looking at that, you had when a lot of the market was foreclosures. So you had everything that was the market. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
had
50%, yeah.
20 grand, and then and then things were at 100. Like that was very difficult to try to actually
Determine the
value.
Yeah.
So
Right, people were sitting put, or there was foreclosures, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That was short sales and whatnot.
it was a mess.
yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
it
we
was.
we worked through that, right? I mean,
Yep.
that was some challenging times because it was almost like a reset.
Well, yeah, I mean, 36,000 properties in the Twin Cities area on the market, as we were rolling in 2007, 2008. And that's why what happened.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. The demand wasn't there. We look at our market now, and we're sitting there at 8,000 and some. 8,000 some change at the moment, and that's going to keep going down like we talked about.
yeah.
Gosh, I remember back then, people were giving away their boats and their ATVs, and they would even throw a car into the purchase agreement to try to sell the property.
Yeah.
Right? And it still wasn't moving. So those were some crazy times.
Are we dating us here? I mean, is this like
A little bit.
Are we watching Matlock right now? Yeah,
I bet.
no kidding.
2023. It's like, come on, jeez.
Watching MASH with my daughter the other day.
That's funny.
She's like, actually, I didn't really watch a show. It was my parents that watched
Yes.
the show. But
Yeah.
now I'll go in and watch it, Yeah. Yes, dating ourselves. So you mentioned a little bit about what goes into evaluating the property, looking at that past sales data. How far do you go? Are there age parameters? Are there size parameters that you're looking at? Are you comparing style with it, or is it just purely anything like? Well, it doesn't matter if it's if it's in 2 blocks and it's a sale. We're considering it.
Yeah, so each property in the state has its own property record, and you have it all down. You have square footage, there's condition, there's style, and actually every 5 years, someone from the office is supposed to look at your house and verify it. And a lot of times you can let them in or you can not let them in. Most of us probably choose to not let them in, but. So you have that.
I've got a friend who says they haven't been in 15 years.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you have it a lot. I mean, if you're not hiding anything, I mean, it's really just kind of verification of what's
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So then with the sales that come in, so those sales kind of hit those same kind of check marks, it's basically based on a computer model, and so that model spits it out. Now, the model that works really well, I think, except for the extremes. So the really low value properties and the high value properties, the computer model has a hard time getting like those really finite kind of details. But you go into Southwest Minneapolis where things are homogeneous ramblers.
Right.
That model's
That's
gonna
easy.
work pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might just be a condition factor from that standpoint. You could have a grandma that's been there forever, or you have someone who has updated it.
Okay.
So what about certain characteristics that I look at when trying to determine market value, whether that's for a buyer or a seller? Like, is it on a busy road? Is it next to a railroad track? Is it on a corner lot? Is there industrial next door?
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of thing factored at all or not?
Yes, it is, because
Okay.
and that's also going to be reflected in the sales data as well too. And so and you can get traffic counts, and so you have like Minnehaha Parkway or you have Penn Avenue, Xerxes. You have the higher traffic counts on those, and it kind of spreads out from there. And I'm obviously more focused on Minneapolis because that was
Right.
what I'm more familiar with. But then even like the lakes, so you have the higher properties, and even there was kind of the old adage that you kind of values would drop kind of as each block goes.
Yep.
away from the lake,
Okay.
which,
Sure.
that I think that's kind of changed a little bit. But yeah, I mean, all those factors are taken into account. And then even like the mills, like on Minnehaha, you and the
You
train
pay a
tracks there.
premium. Yeah.
And so you get there is a location factor that they have.
Now, I know you also have a little bit of a background in disputing value. So
Yes.
where do you see the biggest issues and in successful disputes that you've had? That obviously it's something that's not being taken into consideration.
I think it happens a lot with either properties that have had some deferred maintenance, and then if they have done updates, maybe the
Not
city
well.
the city or county think that they're better than what they actually really are.
Okay.
And you do have that, and then you also have it too where they are catching up with the market. That's all historical data as well too. So sometimes they haven't maybe caught up with a certain area as well too. So I mean, you can really kind of pinpoint that with the number of phone calls and pings that we get from the inquiries about basically the valuations and stuff. So
Gotcha.
it really just kind of depends, and and I think it's especially like the higher end properties. There's a lot of ambiguity there with where should this value be. I mean, you see some listings that are going to not even so close to what that is,
Right.
and then you look at the tax assessment. It could be way less, but you just don't have that much data.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Bringing up that point, and to what we were talking about a little earlier, you're saying, "Oh, my taxes went up by $500."
Yeah.
But if you're saying it's data from 2 years ago, then that would completely make sense because
Yeah.
our market acceleration was at that 8% range,
Yeah,
right?
That answered my question. actually. It really did. I was
Yeah.
thinking we were looking at real-time data.
So,
Excuse me.
yeah,
So that does make sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, and the time frame to challenge the value every year. So all the values, like I said, get set on January 2nd of each year.
Okay.
And then you will get a value notice that says this is what we think your value is worth, and then all of the steps to appeal below that. So
Okay.
that's typically going to be at the end of February and March, and then early April. Once that time period ends, I mean, you could still go to tax court, but you better.
I think isn't that the purple letter? I don't.
They
or
do color them.
they-
You're right. You're right.
And they change it, yeah, and they
Kind of like the shade of the color of my skin when I look at them. It goes red pretty quick. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Well, and really when you get and then now stepping into the role that I have now, it is a really good time to touch base when you get that notice, to touch base with your real estate agent, to touch base
Yeah.
and make sure that, hey, do you think that this value is appropriate? Because then they can run the competitive market analysis or comparative market analysis and try to narrow that down.
So
I like
on that note, am I doing a comparative market analysis from 2 years ago? Is that the data I should be using?
No, because once that value gets set, you pay taxes on that the following year. So you're actually just looking at the previous year. So
Okay.
when that value notice goes out, because with the value notice that you're
The
gonna
last
get in February.
365 days from
Yeah,
the
so
time the
just look
notice
at
goes
that.
out. Okay.
And so you would just be looking at the previous year. And then you could also throw in be like, well, and this is what I think real time, like what it is now, to kind of be preparing for the next one too. So it's always a good checks and balances. And if you get the market analysis and it's a lot higher than what the assessed value is, then you simply fold that up and put it away.
You're
say,
right.
"Okay, great.
Yeah, you're happy.
But if it's if it is off, so you say your assessed value is too high, that is the time where you should appeal your value.
Okay.
And it's not an adversarial thing, because the cities and counties should want to make sure that everything is equal amongst everybody too. So that means that there's probably something wrong.
Right.
We have proper tax is we have a website, propertax.co, and we did get a bunch of inquiries, and we actually said for a lot of them, like, actually your value looks pretty good, and you shouldn't appeal. And
Yeah.
because we're not into just wasting time, wasting city because that's city tax dollars as well too, and we want to make sure that everything is fair and equitable as well too. So
Right.
All right. So one of the things that I'm curious about is, have you noticed anything different when analyzing a property for market value when you're out there with buyers, of how you're, or sellers, as you're analyzing properties?
You know, it is just, I think it's more just the fact that it's real time.
Okay.
And then it's not, you know, you're not looking at this historical data that you're supposed to be looking at for, you know, for the tax value. So it's real time. I mean, really those values, and I've been trained to have them be the same. And also too is when you're looking at, you know, forecasting out, I mean, you're trying to kind of forecast out maybe what that will be as well too. So it's just the fact that it's just the time frame is different.
Yeah, I know, like, one of the big things that I look at is, you know, okay, so here's my sales, and I think the value is X, right? But I'm the only one on the market, right? I might have an opportunity to ask a bit more possibly. Or also looking at pendings, like what's in the pipeline, not what's closed. But hey, these are under contract. These are why the competition's gone, and you know, they aren't closed sales yet. But it gets to that. This is where the market is heading. That forecasting out a little bit,
Right.
Because obviously our job typically when representing a seller is to get as much money as feasibly possible, and if that door is open to do so, and so yeah, that predicting and look at every way to see where that market is going. So,
I got a question for you, Tim. I see this periodically where I'm running numbers for a client, and I notice that the property taxes seem very, very low. So after calling, because I call the county and I ask, hey, this seems, you know, low considering, you know, the different houses in the area are much higher. So some veterans or disabled folks have the opportunity to have a discounted property tax percentage, right? Is that true across the state or the country?
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know about the country, but you know, throughout there's veterans exclusions. There's a whole variety of programs.
Okay.
That are out there too that makes a difference when you're looking at that.
Okay.
Another thing too is, I mean, it is supposed to be as of January 2nd. So a lot of times if it's new construction, you know, it could have been 50% built as of January 2nd. So
Okay.
that value is going to be jumping up again for the next year. And so in 2 years, the taxes are going to go up quite a bit too. So
Right.
it's another thing for when you're working with your buyers, making sure that they definitely understand that.
oh yeah,
as well.
that's
Absolutely.
when on the new construction stuff. I mean, it can kind of be a benefit. It's like, hey, you're only paying taxes on the lot value for the
for a
next year or so.
Right.
But it is going to get a little bit more expensive. So
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, I think, I have a much better understanding now after this conversation. You know, I from what I see is that the process is very similar to what I do when I run a market analysis, but ultimately, just trying to hone in on that looking out when working with buyers versus the tax is looking back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of myths of things that I've heard of how that value is come up with.
Absolutely.
Just don't seem to be the case. And I'm glad to actually hear that the corner lot or the busy road is being taken into account, because I didn't think it was.
I didn't realize that either. My previous house, we were on a corner lot, so we paid taxes on the two roads, right? The side road and then the main road.
Or for assessments.
Yeah, assessment. Pardon me. Yeah. So it was interesting because we did get an assessment for an overlay on the road, right? And it was just things that I've learned. You know, I've owned several houses over the years, but I'm always learning. You know, this is valuable information.
Yeah, and the assessing profession in Minnesota, I mean, you know, they're not some of these benevolent overlords that are just like, you know, looking to, you know, screw us all over either. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, they want to get it right too. And so, I mean, if we're seeing something in the market, you know, they want to have that communication back and forth. So
Right.
So I want to give you the opportunity, if people do have questions about where their value, if they think it's really off, they can get in touch with you, right?
yeah, I mean, you can email me, Tim at BRIXTwinCities.com. That's probably the best route to
Okay.
go. Also too is, you know, and then on my on the Facebook page too, I will start to have more information about the proper tax, and then, you know, is more information with BRIX as well too.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and deep diving into that.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah,
thanks
it was
for having
a conversation I've been really looking forward to help clear up some of the misnomers I know that I had about that. So, as always, if you have any questions for any of us, you can also hit us up at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com and submit questions there. Type them into the comments, and we'll get back to you. Everybody, have a great week.
Thank you.
Don't forget to check us out online anytime at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. There you can find all of our past shows, our weekly market updates, along with the latest and greatest searching and researching tools, and our free publications to include the Smart Home Buyer Guide and the Smart Seller Guide, along with the BRIX Report. All of these free for you. If you have any real estate questions, please feel free to give us a call, 651-303-0019. Again, 651-303-0019. Happy to help answer any of your real estate questions or assist with your real estate needs.